try this again real quick. So I was experimenting with these new things, and they're probably not new, they're just new to me. One of the things I was sort of studying was telekinesis. Telekinesis, biokinesis. I'm making the assumption that kinesis is like motion, energy in motion. Okay, so you have damaged matter within your body. Everybody does from time to time. It's called getting sick. You have a chi energy form within each one of your chakras. Each one of your chakras are aligned with each other. Whether you choose to allow them to run through you. This is also talked about in Qigong or Qigong, which is the idea that there is an energy. Some people call it God. Doesn't really matter what you call it. It exists at all times. Some people push really hard in their life to access this infinite source of energy. This, some would say, is not really mortal. It always exists. It always has existed. This same thing to some religions and sects of man can heal you if you allow it to. The one barrier that I found to be sort of littered with lies and different types of misconceptions or misunderstandings is that if you wanted to heal and live longer, that your mind would have to get out of the way. You'd have to set everything aside that you think you know about healing and faith and the potency of healing, which is it's a half truth, because there are things that you could sort of understand if you didn't have these false conceptions or constructs of the mind standing in the way, like physical or spiritual alchemy becoming one. Your spirit as a human being is like your sphere of light, or your soul. As the guru on the video I watched said, that your sphere moves through your mind to different sectors of your mind. So when you feel happiness, the sphere of your soul is in the part of your mind that creates happiness. Happiness, laughter, humor are all types of emotion that people are able to heal with. Like when you feel sorrow, you're more prone to feel sick or get sick. When you feel peace and happiness, you're less likely to get sick. So the idea of emotions not having any bearing on what type of life you have, or if you have a good life, or you achieved nirvana or bliss in your life, and then found yourself fluctuating in and out of nirvana. You've made it further than some people do. Some people never even achieve nirvana. You know what I mean? So if you've achieved it and then you fell out of it, in and out of it, drug abuse and all these other things aside, because there are people I know that got sober, achieved nirvana, relapsed, and still felt nirvana. The drugs didn't really dictate the sphere of light that is your soul. That's like saying that your soul, or your energy source that is you, is strictly a chemical that releases from your mind. That's not true at all. The sphere of light that is your soul can react and counter-react to the chemicals that release from your brain. This is also the false thing that love is just a chemical that releases from your brain when you touch somebody or hug somebody. That's a half-truth. There are chemicals that release from your brain when you feel love, but that's like saying that God is just a chemical. You know what I'm saying? Because I am a believer. I believe there is a God, and that God is not just a chemical. You know what I'm saying? Um, because the love that I felt when I felt pure nirvana or just bliss, I knew was not just a chemical. It wasn't just something I felt because I got something I wanted, or I heard a really cool song and it made me feel love. It wasn't the whole truth. There were times when I heard music that made me feel like I was closer to God. So, all that being said, I was describing that I knew that when you eat certain types of food, it very much develops this type of consciousness in your mind. Like let's say you eat something sweet, and the bindus or the gurus they actually speak of this. You eat something sweet. When you eat something sweet and you're in that state of consciousness, you experience things that are sweet. Like you eat something sweet and you feel sweet. You feel kind and generous. Um, the sad thing about that is, like the native shamans, the different shamans say that, when you do drugs and you feel euphoria from the drugs, you can do that without doing any drugs. That the thing that the drug is doing to your mind, without the mind, you would feel no drug reaction. So it isn't really the drug that is doing it, it is your mind that is doing it. So, that being said, if you can learn to access the part of your mind that makes you feel euphoria from a drug, you will no longer need drugs. Okay, you can think whatever you want. I'm not the inventor of this information. I'm just saying I had experienced it a few times. And once you experience something like that, it's drugs and different things, physical nature seems kind of ridiculous. It'd be like me chasing down every wonderful, shiny thing, hoping that it changes the way I feel when I don't need to change the way I feel. Um, this very much has to do with biokinesis and telekinesis, as far as like, um, and you could think again. You could think whatever you want about me. You can call me a liar, or cheat, whatever. I don't care. Um, I've experienced where people look me directly in the eyes, asking me about a particular type of information, and when they looked me in the eyes, all of a sudden, whatever information it was transmuted from the third eye or the temporal lobes into my mind. So anyway, I don't really care if people deny the things I say or try to cover them up. I'm sharing my experience. I'm not trying to change the way you believe in something. I'm not trying to push something out of your consciousness so I can control you. I'm not trying to do any of that stuff. Those kind of things were like I prayed to Jesus Christ, to God. I prayed and prayed over and over again. I meditated because I was suffering. And when I prayed to God, these are the kind of things that flooded my consciousness. So it doesn't really matter to me that you might have a different perception of what Jesus Christ represents, or if it is or isn't true, because that's your experience. Okay? And I don't want to argue about your experience because I don't want to cheat you out of your life. In fact, I thought it was like how do you say it? Wonderful. You know what I'm saying? Like rapture. Rapture is a feeling of joy. It isn't necessarily a bunch of people disappearing and going to heaven. And I'm not saying that isn't true. I'm just saying that rapture is a feeling of joy. It's like you lived your whole life in suffering, diluting your senses with drugs and bad food and just people that were sometimes your friend and sometimes your enemy. You don't have to do that anymore. In fact, you never really had to do that in the first place. It's once you really know how to love people or how to implement love into your life as an energy, an action, and not just words, and an art form like music, a beautiful painting, then you understand love is more powerful than any of those other things. Love is definitely more powerful than a pill that would repair your neurons that are depressed. Imagine what I just said. Your neuron, your Your neurons that produce serotonin and dopamine are depressed. A neuron being depressed it means it is not as active as it should be. And when that happens, that means that your body, your mind is not producing the chemical that is needed for you to not feel depressed. Drugs suppress those neurons. They make you unable to feel the good sense of peace and tranquility that your mind produces. The superconscious, which is part of your brain, allows you to supersede the damages of your brain and still feel peace and happiness because there is a God. In other words, if you have a damaged brain or you have a lot of problems physically, it doesn't mean you can't feel peace. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean you feel more peace because you're ignorant or not as intelligent as other people or educated. Like, none of that has anything to do with salvation and peace and stuff like that, you know? Education and intelligence can make your life, your physical life, like your money life, all this other stuff, probably better. But your spiritual life has nothing to do with what kind of stuff you know or write about or read about. It really doesn't. You could read 100 books about how to be happy and still not be happy. You know what I mean? You could repair every neuron in your brain, produce more serotonin, and still not be happy. Because in reality, it's a personal choice. Just like if you wanted to use your own chi to remove decay from your body or mind, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. Not even if you don't believe you can. That's like me saying that the man that doesn't say that he believes in Jesus Christ, Christ won't help him. That's not unconditional love. That's conditions on something that isn't conditional. That's like saying that guy over there in the corner, he's too ugly. God's not going to help him. It's the same kind of thing, you know. It's kind of ridiculous. God has absolutely no eyes to see in a physical way. It doesn't matter what you look like, what you say, how you dress, what you draw, what you read about. Those are not things that matter to God. Those are things that matter to a physical, being, like a matter-based being. Like, I don't have enough brain cells to perceive God in my life. Oh my God. So anyway, I say that because when I was feeling the most nirvana, the physical problems I have, like my stomach, my lungs, all the damaged parts of my body, were virtually non-existent. Like, the pain had completely gone away. I didn't even think about whether it was still damaged or not because it may not have been. Miracles happen all the time. You don't need validation or confirmation if a miracle happened or not. Because normally what happens when you do that is that they find some way to scientifically prove it or form it into something that just kind of cheats it of its divine nature. You know what I mean? If God, for whatever reason, came down and directly touched you right in your heart about the time you're about to have a heart attack or a stroke and saved your life, how much would it matter if they scientifically proved what happened? It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't even cheat God out of his divine work that he had done in you or anybody else. So I thought that was some really cool stuff to share, as far as like, I can't share that stuff in different types of organization places or whatever. I wish that I could. I've tried and without laughing, I got kind of laughed out of the places and stuff, kind of just mocked in a way that was like, that guy, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. It's a bunch of nonsense. So I'm not mad at people about that, but I just stopped doing it. Like, I'm not going to go to certain places and talk about that and just get kind of treated like some kind of crazy lunatic or something, like you go to a church or something and say, hey, I was pretty fucking sick. I was dying of this and this, and I ended up living, and the illness is gone. A lot of these church organizations would be like, oh, praise God, praise God. You know what I mean? There are some that wouldn't do that. They'd question every single thing about it and say it was a devil or a demon or something like that. And they're entitled to their opinion, but I was just trying to share something cool with some people or whatever. So those two things work if you really focus on them. They might actually help you. Maybe you can help some other people. So God bless you.